Hey Brian, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. You surviving the shutdown all right?
Yeah, we sure are. Interesting times, no doubt.
It is. It's interesting because I remember last year at the NACS show is when I think you guys started debuting your electric vehicle charging cabinet. And I want to talk to you about that a little bit because I think I've been talking to a lot of people about how the market's evolving and, we think it's going to recover. There's been a lot of question about, is the accelerated transition to an electric vehicle market still on pace? And from Gilbarco's perspective, you guys have how many decades of experience on the liquid fuel market? And then towards the end of last year, you started getting into the electric vehicle charging market. What's your outlook on that, and how is it going for Gilbarco so far?
Yeah, sure, thanks. So, yeah, Gilbarco is a 150-year-old plus company. We got our start with Gilbert and Barker back in the 1860s and progressed to be the world leader in fueling systems that everybody knows today. In 2018, we announced an investment in Tritium, which is a DC fast charging company based out of Brisbane, Australia. And that really got us started in e-mobility. And since then, we've been expanding the business significantly. It's really been great for us. The outlook for electric vehicles is still outstanding, COVID-19 notwithstanding. What we've seen is, yes, there is a slowdown in all vehicle sales. Electric vehicle sales, however, are slowing less than traditional ICE vehicles are. So good sign number one right there. Second sign is that in the US, what's really driving a lot of the activity is the availability of funding. And funding has not slowed down very much. As it turns out, making decisions about who you're going to fund, where sites are going to go, is largely a paperwork exercise. And that's actually been exactly the kind of thing that folks can handle well, given the current, largely work at home, computer-based environment that we find ourselves in. I would have loved to have gone to NACS in 2020 and been delighted to talk to folks about e-mobility and all of our great new product offerings. But that wasn't meant to be based on where we are today. You still have a
chance. The NACS virtual experience is coming, and there's going to be an opportunity to talk to people just like we're talking now. It's not the same, but you know what? We've been putting that together the last few weeks. From my perspective, they've been working on it for a long time. I've started paying attention. I think the opportunity is to more dynamically engage and interact with different information sources could be pretty cool for the virtual experience.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success engaging people online in what I would say are non-traditional ways, and been pleasantly surprised at how well that's gone. And we started with DC fast charging, but to continue on our outlook, we didn't really stop there. We recently launched our amps2go L2 charger in the US. Very exciting product, completes the portfolio a little bit. Not only do we serve convenience stores, we also serve fleets. And each market has slightly different needs to be met and in different use cases that have to be solved for. And the addition of an L2 charger to our platform really, really enables us to go just a little bit more broad and complete than we did before. The way we look at it is, nobody wants to buy just a charger. They want to buy an e-mobility solution, and that's what we're really trying to bring to market.
Yeah, you're part of the Fuels Institute Electric Vehicle Council, and I was actually just reviewing our draft report that you'll see next week for peer review on regulatory structures and what are the regulations, state level, local levels for installation, operation. There's also a huge section in there in funding opportunities by state. So I think it's going to be a huge resource for anybody who's looking to get into the market. With that in mind, one of the questions that's been raised with the EV Council as we think about infrastructure is, how much infrastructure do we really need? I always raise the specter of, the American customer goes to buy a pickup truck. I need at least 10,000 pounds of towing capacity and a payload of 2,500 pounds. Well, what are you going to pull? I don't know, but I might need to pull it at some point, so I need to have it. I kind of equate that to EVs. I need at least 500-mile range per charge, or I need at least 25 chargers within a mile of my house. Have you guys done any analysis to see how many chargers do we really need? And what kind of market penetration do we need to satisfy the actual customer demand in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so we don't really have specifics on exact number of chargers that you need, but in general, what we try to do is follow where the market goes. If you look at where EVs are penetrating, you need to have a reasonable amount of infrastructure in place to support transportation. One of the interesting things about electric vehicles as you compare them to ICE vehicles is the concept of home charging. And is that really going to impact the future of convenience stores in particular? And the statistic that you hear commonly cited today is 80% of charging happens at home, right? So one of the big questions is that really going to continue into the future or not? I personally don't believe it's going to remain that high. We've done a lot of VOC, talked with a lot of customers, and at first people think, kind of like your 10,000 pound thing, well, gosh, I need to have charging at home. I've got to be able to do that. And then it turns out, well, actually, it's kind of a hassle to get it installed, and it might be more expensive than you think. And when people really start analyzing what they want out of a charging experience, the one word that's top of mind for everyone is convenience. Right. So if that is that in that 80-20 world, I think we're going to see that 80 start to nudge down. So you still have, this massive opportunity for charging, that's just going to need a tremendous amount of infrastructure. And consumers have been very, very clear in that convenience experience they're looking for. And the other thing they say is, we really want it to work just like it does when we go fill up with gas today. We want it to be convenient. We want it to be pain-free. We want it to be safe. We want attendance there. All the basics of blocking and tackling that our industry for so long has done such a great job of solving for.
And I think, you raise a good point. The 80-20 is what everybody's talking about, 80% at home. But we only have about 1% of the market is electrified. And so if we're going to get to these penetration rates, some are projecting of 20, 30% of the market being electrified vehicles, you're going to have to go into multi-unit dwellings. And there are some new codes being put forth that 20% of parking spaces at new apartment complexes have to have chargers. They're going to be L2 chargers, so they're not going to be super fast. That's going to satisfy the entire demand of the apartment complex. Those residents who are likely going to start thinking about EVs in the future because of cost considerations, and they're usually a little younger customer, more, I want the newest, greatest thing, they're going to need a place to charge. And they're going to be looking in their market, in their area, to find out, where can I go? And I think non-residential charging opportunities are going to become so much more business savvy and business feasible over the next 5 years than we could possibly imagine today.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a really big deal. Another example, if you just think about more urban housing, if you don't have off-street parking, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to run an extension cord out of your window and, try to charge your car. What if you can't even park it in front of your house on one particular day? I mean, I used to live in a city, and I got really good at parallel parking because that's what you had to do. And sometimes you had to hike a bit. So yeah, I mean, it's a real problem. The concept of, charge at home is really not a panacea that's just going to solve the problem for everybody. And even if it could, there are a lot of folks who don't necessarily want it to. They want convenience, they want ease, they don't want to have to deal with it.
And that gets into the same thing I'm trying to get people to remember as well. I think the electric vehicle driver is going to approach energy supply very differently than the gasoline driver. We drive our cars now, it gets down to a quarter tank or lower, we'll swing by, get a tank of gas. We don't think about it ahead of time. 9 times out of 10, you get in the car and go, oh man, my light's still on, you gotta go get gas. The EV driver is not gonna do that. They're gonna recharge every chance they get. The incidence in which they're gonna recharge from depleted to full in one sitting is gonna be pretty minimal, very limited, I believe. I think it's going to be, they're gonna recharge a couple times a week, whether it's at home or in the market, and they're gonna try to get 40, 50, 60, 70 miles of range each charge, and then they'll move on. So the whole idea of dwell time, and I know the convenience industry was thinking, how are we gonna get people to spend an hour at our stores? Well, if you get them to spend an hour inside your stores, you're doing great. You have an opportunity to really capture some revenue. But I think it's more, how do you create an opportunity for the EV driver, who's the same customer you've had for years, they're driving a different kind of car now. Give them some energy, get them inside the store, buy something to eat, buy some things inside your facility, 5, 10 minutes, get 30, 40 miles of charge and be on their way. And I think it's a different mindset that we've got to get people thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's, the concept of opportunity charge is really something that doesn't necessarily exist in the traditional fueling world like the way it does in the EV world. I think the other thing that's so important there is to think about, what is our industry good at? We got really, really good at loyalty, like scary good at loyalty. If you think about adding loyalty to EV charging, What a powerful combination that is, because it can create those exact opportunities that you're talking about. And if you look at a company like Gilbarco, you're going back, why did we get into e-mobility, right? It's because we know the C-store space. We understand this environment. More than just offering a charger off, by itself in some ugly corner, we want to bring that into the full fueling environment, give consumers the same experience that they have today. They want to pay by credit card at the charger. They want pay at charger just like they have pay at pump today. And that can further lead you to opportunities for loyalty, pull those folks into the store, and get them doing the same thing that they do today. At the end of the day, it really is going to be all about convenience on the consumer retail level. So to the extent that, we continue to win our home turf of convenience retailing, we will win in the EV future as well.
So that leads me to another topic that we've been kind of batting around. So NACS launched an EV infrastructure referral program earlier this year. The idea was connect NACS members who have an interest in installing EV chargers with organizations and companies that want to install chargers at convenience stores. Marry them up, let them figure out the economics and dynamics. But there's a mix between, do you sign up with a network charging provider who comes in, does soup to nuts, we take care of it, we install it, we maintain it, we just pay you a lease for the parking spaces we're occupying? Or do you go into it and build out your own? I'm assuming with your model with the Tritium chargers, you're kind of offering the retailer an opportunity to own the infrastructure themselves. Is that accurate?
Yeah, really, we can support both. If you're a retailer who, for whatever reason, might be economic, it might be operational, decides that you want to work with an operator network, that's something we can support. But also, we support independent operation, and I really think that's where I see a lot of the really great future opportunity. If you stick with the network, there are some limitations you end up with. If you think about it from the consumer's perspective, this is a keen area of interest for consumers. And there's not just one network, there's not really a dominant player. So there are many, many networks. And it turns out that what consumers have told us is, well, if there's one place I go all the time and I only ever go there, then the network might work fine for me. But if I have to go to a second place, maybe I have to join a second network. If I have to go to a third place, maybe I have to join a third network. And it very quickly comes back to, back in the 80s when folks were getting the little barcode scan things on their key rings. It's the same concept, except now it's apps, and it feels like 3 is like the point of pain. Once people get above 3, they're like, wow, this is just terrible. I don't want to do this. Right? So that leads you right into the, well, we want the experience just like we have today at the gas station. I want to be able to come up. I want to pay with my credit card. I want to pay at pump. I want to be able to go inside the store. If I need to pay inside the store, I can pay inside the store. Any tender method that's accepted, not just however I happen to be able to pay through that app. The other challenge with networks, of course, is that they're economically inefficient. Both the store operator and the consumer are, going to have some cost to bear there for the facilitation that network provides. So, from a technology perspective, we're good to support either. I personally think a network-free future makes an awful lot of sense, both for retailers and for consumers.
I've been having kind of visionary conversations with a lot of people about what does the future of transportation and fuel energy retailing look like. And when I think about what you just said, it would be awesome for the retailer, the charging provider, and the customer to have one platform upon which all the networks could engage, on which all the loyalty programs could engage. And the customer has a phone. And this becomes their portal to all things good. And you can pull into any convenience store, any charging location, and log into one platform, access the appropriate app for that store, access the appropriate app for the charging network, payment profiles, everything in one. And in long-term vision, if we were to get inductive wireless charging for all EVs, put some charging pads in parking spots, car rolls up, parks, they're in the convenience store for less than 5 minutes. It automatically initiates a recharging sequence, bills the common core platform. They get in the car, drive away, they just picked up 25 miles of charge. And they never touched anything, never even thought about it. I mean, if we can pursue that type of vision long-term, I think it'd be hugely beneficial to everybody involved.
Yeah, that's pretty visionary. I think there are a lot of technology pieces that will need to come together for that, something like that to happen.
A lot of egos too. A lot of ego's got to be set aside.
This is true, no doubt about it. When you look at the shorter term, there is a little bit of promise in the ISO 15118 standard. Interestingly, Tritium recently launched the first charger in the US that's capable of supporting ISO 15118, and that's called it's the plug and charge standard, right? And really the concept behind that might not be quite as visionary as where you were going, but it's going down that same path where the idea is you just plug the charger into the car, it handles the authentication and payment sort of happens behind the scenes. So it really gets into much more of a plug and go kind of transaction, even more so than a pay at the charger, swipe your card and go kind of effect. So, maybe we're not quite there yet with all the fully hands-off stuff, but you can see with ISO 15118 that, not only are visionaries going that way, but technology companies putting technology into the market today with some of that capability is already happening like it is with Tritium. Now, there's a lot of other infrastructure that has to be put in place for the full system to really be functional. But with the introduction of the RT175S, we're starting to see technology with that right capability is nudging its way into the market, and we expect that to become more pervasive over time. So I think for sure, as we look long-term out into the future, it's going to look different than it does today. And the key challenge for all of us in the industry is to stay out in front of that and be leaders.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting. We have new technology enter the market from multiple actors. Everybody's rushing to get it, and then the standards and regulations rush to catch up. And I think we're going to be seeing this catch-up game for quite a while until we figure out a comprehensive, cohesive structure of the market so that the vehicles, infrastructure, the charging ports, the payment profiles, all of them start riding on similar rails so they can communicate with one another. Then I think the opportunities for real business enhancements and advancements in how we interact with our customers, I think that's when it's going to really take off quickly.
Yeah, so one interesting thing about the EV market, as I'm sure you're aware, my role is actually global in nature. I live in the United States and I'm a proud American. However, my role is global in nature. And with the EV world, the US is actually not the leading market.
Right.
Both China and Europe are significantly out in front of us in terms of vehicle adoption and charger adoption. That creates an interesting opportunity, and I am seeing some impacts of that. As an example, the ISO 15118 actually really came from Europe. So the Europeans are grappling with all of that really, really bleeding edge market stuff to kind of get it right and solve some of those problems. So as we look at the US, by the time we get that same technology here, it probably will be a little bit more mature than it would have been if the US was right on the bleeding edge. So, definitely advantages and disadvantages to being, on the very, very, very front end. But in this particular case, the US might reap some benefits by not necessarily being first.
Yeah. Brian, thanks a lot. It's been great catching up with you. Keep plugging ahead, keep getting those chargers installed and moving the industry to the next step. It's going to be fantastic to watch it grow.
Appreciate it. Great talking with you, John. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one.
Yeah.